I'd like to thank Martin and move on to what unfortunately will be quite a brief period for comrades here to ask questions, disagreements, make points. So can I have, and also comrades are going to have to come up here as well to speak at the mic. So can I have an indication of who would like to come in? Is it Fran? And Lois next. If you can put your hands down and I'll do it once after Lois has spoken. Sorry.
Yeah, Martin, I'd just like to pick up on the point you made around the PCS dispute. And for me, it demonstrated a bit of a lack of understanding, to be honest, because nobody has ever said that we're ending the action. What we have said is that we're suspending the action to enable further talks to continue. And far from members not understanding that position, I think our members in the Department for Work and Pensions, who so far have taken 22 days of action over the last 3 years, completely understand that position. When I walked around our job centre in Newcastle on Friday and explained the decision, explained why we're taking the decision, nobody said, oh, that's a disgrace, that's a sellout. Everybody said, isn't it brilliant that the thought the civil service being willing to stand together and take action was enough to get the employer back around the table. And they understood that pressure was what was getting the employer back around the table to enable talks to continue, ultimately to enable improvements to be made to their pay. So far from having a difficulty explaining the position, I don't think we've got any difficulty explaining the position, and I think we're very proud of the position that we've taken and the concessions that hopefully they'll achieve. So to be clear, we're not calling off our actions, we're suspending it to try to gain improvements. That's why we're doing it. Thank you.
Like everybody else, I'd like to thank Martin for walking into the lion's den. It's quite a brave thing to do. I wanted to first of all make a point about Obama, because on Friday in our office we got the Stop the War Coalition newsletter through the email, and the headline was, "We are delighted at the election of Barack Obama." Now, I think that is the wrong way for Stop the War Coalition to approach it. It's obviously the SWP members who work in the Stop the War Coalition office who put that out. And I think it shows really the approach of the SWP, that rather than have a method which looks at explaining where the working class is at, where consciousness is at, what things like the election of someone like Barack Obama, what it really means for the working class, and how we can use it as the left and the socialists to develop independent working class organisation and struggle. Rather than do that, then, and I think it's a bit like Martin's contribution, then it's an emotional response to an event which has taken place. We are delighted at the election of Barack Obama. Rather than say, we welcome, or more than welcome, it's a huge step forward for the working class in America and internationally that Bush has gone, and the election of Barack Obama has opened up a situation where the masses, the working class in America, have come out onto the streets, and now we have to do all we can to try to develop that movement. And then in the next paragraph it has, but nevertheless we do have to be a bit careful, because Barack Obama has said that he will increase forces in Afghanistan and he will attack Iran. I mean, quite frankly, that to pose it like that is really the understatement of the century. And you see, it is important, and it's not nitpicking, because I've been at lots of debates like this and meetings where we've criticised the programme, the approach and the method of the SWP, and we've been accused of nitpicking, of just trying to cause an argument, because really it's all about getting out on the streets with your collecting tins and your tables and organising the movement, and if you're not prepared to do that, you're not serious. Well, it's not that, comrades. It's about, as Hannah, I think, explained quite well, it's about looking properly at events and developments as they unfold and taking a correct position in order to take working class struggle forward. Now, very, very quickly, I know lots of people want to get in, but Martin talked about mistakes, and the SWP has made lots of mistakes. And actually, it's a bit of a step forward for the SWP to recognise they've made mistakes, because every discussion up till now has been year zero, which is extremely frustrating, because when young people say to us, why can't you work, or why aren't you in the same party, or why don't you work more with the SWP? And we say, well, we don't think their approach is honest and open, because when they make mistakes or when they change their position and do a somersault, they're not prepared to be honest and discuss why. So it's a bit of a step forward for Martin to say that. But you know, let's look at the mistakes, because these mistakes have huge implications. It's not just a question of, oh, well, we've all made mistakes. The mistakes the SWP have made in the last 15 years or so on the road to the development of a new mass party for the working class, those mistakes have caused huge problems for everybody on the left. First of all, the Socialist Alliance, which we set up, by the way, because we saw the Socialist Alliance not as a new party of the working class, but as a pre-party formation on the road to a new mass party. I think we correctly understood where the working class was at the beginning of the 1990s, what the collapse of Stalinism meant. Your organisation got it completely wrong and over-exaggerating the anti-capitalist movement, and saw that as a new struggle, that the anti-capitalist struggle was on a par, it was even more developed than the miners' strike in terms of consciousness, and working class struggle was more developed than what we saw with the miners' strike. Absolute nonsense, quite frankly, and no scientific examination and explanation of the working class and the struggle and where it's at. The Socialist Alliance trying to turn it into a party in its very, very early formative stages, and then abandoning the Socialist Alliance respect. It's not just about whether it workers MP on the workers' wage. The fundamental issue that we respect was that its programme and its policy, its communalism, putting out leaflets in the East End of London, for God's sake, where the BNP are trying to organise the white working class and saying, George Galloway saying, vote for me because I'm a religious man and I'm married to a Palestinian woman. That is a crime for a socialist to put out a leaflet like that in an area where it can cause divisions between the working class. All fighting inside the trade unions, not for the trade unions to disaffiliate from Labour, but fighting inside the trade unions for a programme that says democratise the funds, or some other wishy-washy formula which doesn't give a clear a way forward for the trade unions and those on the left in the unions that want to end the relationship with the Labour Party. And if it was down to the SWP, the RMT and the FBU would still be affiliated to the Labour Party, because the wrong position that your organisation has taken on that issue. I could go on with the cries, and on optimism, we're extremely optimistic. We struggle daily. The PCS is a left fighting union because of Militant and because of the Socialist Party. That's why it's a left fighting union, because what we've done in the last 40 years inside that trade union, we are extremely optimistic, but we're also realistic. We also understand, and this is the fundamental difference between us and the SWP, that we understand the rhythm of the class struggle. That's the difference, its method and its approach. We understand the rhythm of the class struggle. We're not over-optimistic when it's ridiculous to be so, but we're optimistic when you need to be optimistic. Thank you.
Just keep your hands up while Terry speaks. Just make a quick note.
Comrades, I'm on the steering committee of the Campaign for the Workers Party, and I'm also not a member of the Socialist Party. But what I would like to say is that I'm in favour of working with the left, and in fact I believe that the Socialist Party also are in favour of working with the left. For example, we're involved with the Socialist Workers Party, Respect and others, in a unity project in London. The other thing is the Socialist Party does give platforms, I think, to the left, usually, as does the Campaign for the Workers Party, and there will be at the end of today a similar sort of platform. That isn't always the case with other people on the left, and I would point to the convention of the left, which have denied us a platform and have took an extremely sectarian line over the whole question of a new Workers' Party. Now, one of the problems of being old is that you have long memories. I have long enough memories to remember all the twists and turns of the SWP over the years. Incidentally, going back to British troops going into Ireland, when they supported British troops going into Ireland, only under the impact of events to have to recognise that it was an attack on the working class and a formative period. I also like to contrast the work of the Socialist Party in relationship to the Campaign for the Workers' Party and the role of the SWP when it came to Socialist Alliance. I'm one of those who've been through most of the realignments on the left, from the Socialist Labour Party, which was destroyed by the bureaucracy of Arthur Scargill and the Stalinists, and the Socialist Alliance, which was destroyed by the Socialist Workers Party because they wanted to sell respect. Now, there was a lot wrong with the Socialist Alliance, but the absolutely sectarian way that the SWP destroyed it was, in my opinion, unforgivable. I find it very difficult to, when I listen to the SWP speaking and I look at the twists and turns they've made, to really see how they can ever build a successful workers' party. And I'd just like to make one point that this was touched on by the comrade on the question of Keynesianism. I think on the left there is a lot of confusion about the Brown and Bush's turn towards, allegedly towards Keynesianism. I think what we have to be clear on, it isn't a move to the left. The development of the Labour Party, the so-called nationalisation of the banks and all these other things, does not represent a move to the left. In fact, it moves, thank you, in fact it represents a further move to the right, because of the closeness with capitalism, they're banging out capitalism. And we're going to see over the next period, and that's why we need to build a new Workers' Party, a further move to the left by the Labour Party. We've already seen it with the tax on single parents and the disabled. So I would argue that whilst I would always be prepared to speak on the platform of the Socialist Workers' Party, I personally give credit to the Socialist Party for establishing helping to establish the campaign for the Workers' Party. Incidentally, on the steering committee at most meetings, there is not a majority of Socialist Party members. It is not a Socialist Party front. So I think this discussion is important, this debate is important, but I think we have to recognise the contribution made by the Socialist Party to the developments of the campaign for the Workers' Party in this country.
Just to say there isn't very long to speak. We should be able to get a few more speakers in. Thomas can keep it to, unfortunately, just a few minutes. After, so your name?
Paris.
Sorry, it's not Paris, it's Jude.
Hi, sorry, Paris. I'm also with the CNWP, but I'm not a member of the Socialist Party or the SWP for that matter. But I just wanted to follow up with a couple of things really briefly. I appreciate a couple of things that Martin said, but I just want to follow up a little bit on them. And one was that, yes, of course, we all do make mistakes, and we have to learn from our mistakes, and that we also should be able to learn from each other. But I think that begs a follow-up question, and that is how. I mean, it's one thing to make a statement that we should learn from each other, but how are we actually going to put that into effect in the future? I mean, are we putting into place a sort of dialogue? Are we prepared to continue the dialogue that started today, to sort of, have this back and forth and this change, and to actually begin to learn from each other a little bit? And another question I'd like to follow up on in a similar matter is that you suggested, yes, we must continue to fight in united fronts, but again, I guess the question is how? How do we fight in united fronts? It does seem like, not just the Socialist Party, but many members of the left in this country actually have criticisms of the way that the SWP has operated in united fronts. So I guess that's my question: how does the SWP now need to reassess its methods within united fronts? And then a question not just for Monica, but I guess for both of you: how do you see this moving forward? This dialogue, this debate, etc. What can we put in place to keep this going, rather than just to make this a one-off event?
I think it's very, very good that Martin's come to debates today, and the fact that the Socialist Party has invited a member of the SWP to debate, and also the turnout in this room, I think shows how seriously the Socialist Party takes this issue of left unity. And hopefully, there will be, the door will never be shut to discussions about that issue. And of course, alliances can be made up of groups and organisations that have many political differences and organisational differences as well. And we support the right of every organisation to promote their own ideas and methods, you know, when in any type of left alliance. But this is one of the problems that Socialist Party members have when they enter into work with the SWP. I mean, there's far too many instances for me to outline right now, but almost every week there's instances where Socialist Party members are stopped from speaking, putting forward our ideas, basically, on platforms and in meetings by SWP members. And that, you know, is one of the big problems we have in doing joint work. And it stems from a quite elemental lack of democracy, really. But by democracy in this sense, I mean cooperation and also consensus, achieving those basic things. And it's clear, I mean, it's been referred to, that the Socialist Party would have remained in the Socialist Alliance had there been that basic element of consensus and cooperation in, you know, as part of the new alliance that the Socialist Workers Party wanted. But they came with a constitution that stopped that, basically. And, you know, but what we're talking about is consensus, not on every little tiny detail, because that, you know, could paralyse an organisation or an alliance, but consensus on major policy issues and also on main campaigning issues. And, for instance, standing in elections. And it was made clear by John Rees of the SWP at the Socialist Alliance Conference, where the Socialist Party left, that they would move, you know, he actually says that they wouldn't necessarily support the Socialist Party standing in the areas where the Socialist Party's built up a strong level of support in Lewisham and in Coventry, which Martin just paid tribute to, you know, the way that the Socialist Party's built up that support. But that would have all been ended, it would have been stopped had we remained in the Socialist Alliance and the SWP had their way. And they made that clear at the time. So I don't really want to say anything more, but I am a bit disappointed that Martin has dismissed, you know, discussion of this nature as trading blows. And I know he has entered into some, which I think is very welcoming, because that's, you know, some discussion about some differences. But unless the lessons of history, the experiences that we've gone through with the Alliance, with respect and so on, are learned, then there can't, you know, it's a huge obstacle to joint work in the future. The issue of how we work is extremely important, and these issues have to be discussed.
My name's James Palmer. I'm not actually a member of either the SWP or the Socialist Party, but I'm glad that you know, we're having an opportunity to actually raise some criticisms here. I think the key question for anyone who wants to be a revolutionary of any kind is programme. It's got to come before anything. It's got to come before unity and tactics. It's got to be programme first. And if you look at the left of the last nearly 100 years, there's been two main programmatic currents on the left. You know, two traditions. And the one tradition is that of Marxism and Leninism and Trotskyism and the Bolsheviks. And the other tradition is that which is a social democratic tradition, which gives lip service to Marxism. And unfortunately, both the Socialist Workers Party and the Socialist Party are both of the social democratic tradition. Whereas, I'm sorry, that's the case. The Spartacist League is not. Yeah, boo, boo, boo. Listen, if you want to know what the real issues are, I'll just tell you the positions and keep it very simple. You know what? Want to know what kind of party defended the Soviet Union when it existed because it was a deformed worker state? The issue of the cleaning out the Stalinists was an internal matter. We did not support the imperialists. That was the Spartacist League. The same with China today. China's a deformed worker state. You've just written a long article in the Socialist Party about this. You can't decide if it's somewhere between capitalism or socialism or not. The point is, you don't defend it. Okay? Marxists will defend the Soviet Union and China and Cuba and North Korea and Vietnam. The other question is the question of the state.
Comrades,
okay?
can you just let the comrades come up here to make us... Hang on a minute, I'm trying to help you. Just be quiet while comrades speak, if that's all right.
The other question is the question of the state. If you want to bring the working class forward to a high level of consciousness, you've got to tell them who their friends are and their enemies are. Okay? Prison officers, cops, are not part of the workers' movement. Okay? The Socialist Party in particular needs to understand this. Yeah, unfortunately, they don't. That's not their programme. We say immigration cops out of the PCS union. We say that the cops and the prison officers are not the vanguard of the working class movement, and we do not hail it. Okay? You know, we say what Trotsky said: the worker who becomes a policeman in the service of the capitalist state is a bourgeois cop and not a worker. Talk to anyone who is in a miners' strike, and they'll tell you that. My third point is the point of the reformist tactic of trying to enter into the control of the state, entering into either national or local governments in executive office. Okay? The Socialist Party's traditions are very proud of this. You know, the idea that you could enter into something like Liverpool City Council and somehow run the capitalist state. What does that teach the working class? The point is that the state has to be dismantled and overthrown, and a new one set up by the working class in a proletarian revolution. If you want to know more about our organisation, see our paper. Thank you.
Apart from saying that the only state that I would defend as a deformed, bureaucratically deformed worker state would be Cuba, which is not what I came up to say. Capitalism will be restored anywhere else. But I'm here to sort of make a plea for left unity. Essentially, I think both for there to be any party of the left, a new mass workers' party in this country, we need both the Socialist Party and the Socialist Workers' Party inside it. Preferably most of the rest of the left, I'm not sure that's sparse, in it too. But the important thing would be to have those two parties. I think something that's either got the one or the other, but not both, isn't going to work. The depth of this crisis is something that we've never experienced in any of our lifetimes, those of us in this room. I think it's going to get steadily worse. In the face of that crisis, the left cannot carry on with business as usual. We've got to get our act together. We can't wait, in my view, until after 2010, until after the Labour Party goes down to defeat at the hands of the Tories. We've got to do something now. We've got to try and get the left together, if possible, for the European elections, and certainly, if we can't do that, a united left, whether it's one party or whether it's united front, electoral cartel, something for the general election. It's essential that we work together. We can do this in other ways. I mean, the National Shop Stewards Network should be built. It's something in which both the Socialist Party and the SWP and people who are still inside the Labour left and some people who seem to be anarcho-syndicalists are all working together. And it would be a way of building from the bottom up. I mean, I accept that there are some good trade union leaders. The awkward spot by and large sold out, but I'm not. You know, Bob Crow, Mark Sawonka, Nick Rack, Matt Rack, getting the wrong project here. That one. They've done a lot of good things, but they're not perfect, and you do need pressure from below. I mean, I have some doubts about some things that happen in the PCS, particularly regarding pensions, but I'm not going to get into that now. I think that both parties have on occasions made mistakes. Look, as someone who was in the Socialist Alliance, and I was proud of being in the Socialist Alliance, I think if the Socialist Party hadn't walked out, those of us who were left and were closed down in room 101 of this building, which was not a very nice experience for us, we wouldn't have gone through that. I really think that there were people, independents, in the Socialist Alliance who would have sided more with the Socialist Party in the light of all that. That respect as a popular frontist project, the pre-split respect, the respect of Galloway was a disaster. I have joined Left Alternative, which is the post-split after Galloway and the Islamists had gone. Okay, some people who went in Respect Renewal are socialists. We've got to try and reach out to the other brother and various other people who are socialists. I think they've done the wrong thing, but they are socialists, to try and bring them back. Okay, the unity of the left is essential because this crisis is going to get worse. The fascists are going to, and nationalists and racists of all sorts are going to be offering false solutions. We owe it to the working class to unite, to have one party of the left, in the same way as being attempted in France and in Germany and various other places. Okay, I'll leave it with that.
Three more speakers, and I'm afraid they'll have to be very brief, just clear questions, clear comments. Person here, Andrew, and yes, if you want to come. Sorry, apologies for that.
I am going to be very brief, comrades. I just want to come back quickly on what Martin said about fighting the far right. I think quite quickly you said that fighting the far right, it's not enough to say just not vote Labour Party, when campaigning against the BNP. I want to come back on a little bit of experience myself. Other comrades who are actually in this room from Exeter had a couple of years ago in building a campaign against the BNP in a new presence they had in Exeter at that point. We set up a citywide campaign on the grounds of the same thing that you've just said, on the basis that it's not good enough to go to working class people, white working class people who are interested in voting for the BNP and saying, well, actually, just vote for anyone else, not them. It needs to be on a real working class alternative position. The first meeting that we set up here, there was some comments from the SWP from Exeter turned up and were arguing that we should affiliate to the Unite Against Fascism, which actually has the same platform of saying that you should go to people and just say a vote for anyone else is better than is in an argument of voting against the BNP, which is essentially what you just said. I'd like to reply about that.
Comrades, my name is Andrew Price. I'm a member of the Socialist Party, and up to May of this year I was a member of the National Executive Committee of the University and College Union. Now, having listened to the discussion this morning, I have heard today the comrade Martin from the SWP say that the SWP has made mistakes, and yet in my view there has not been, in the course of what he's had to say today, a coherent analysis of the mistakes that have been made, why the mistakes were made, and we haven't had any guarantee at all that in the future work of his party the mistakes won't be replicated. What am I talking about exactly? The Socialist Party argued that the transformation of the Labour Party into New Labour marked a fundamental change in the class character of the Labour Party, necessitated a whole new set of demands for socialists to make and for socialists to organise in a particular way, including opposing New Labour electorally. Now, as I recall, the Socialist Workers Party denied that analysis completely, arguing instead that nothing had changed in the Labour Party. Now, do they stand today by that misanalysis of the situation? Is a question that I'm posing. Now, 2.5 years ago, yes, as long ago as that, in the final conference of one of the predecessors of the University and College Union, NATFI, I organised a fringe meeting for the Campaign for a New Workers' Party. At CNWP meetings, the Socialist Workers' Party is usually conspicuous by its absence. On this occasion, they turned up in relatively large numbers at the fringe meeting, arguing there was no case at that time for a New Workers' Party because respect existed, and respect was the New Workers' Party which we should all be supporting. The claim was made that it was a New Workers' Party, presumably because it was believed by those comrades from the SWP that respect could reach significant layers of the trade union movement at a time when George Galloway was making it clear his opposition to abortion rights for women and his opposition to gay rights. Now, given the commitments of trade unionists to an equality agenda, was that a mistake or was it a fundamental, I would say it was more than a mistake, I would say it's a fundamental error that derived from the opportunism at the time of the SWP. Now, quite frankly, I don't think there is any evidence that can be presented at this meeting or elsewhere that the SWP has turned its back on opportunism. That is why it is very difficult for those who are seriously trying to build a socialist alternative to New Labour to work with them.
Yeah, the SWP said on their website clearly that they're actually opposed to parliamentary democracy, and if you look on the website they actually state that if you look on there. And yet since Respect reformed 4 years ago, we saw in the European election of 2004, the general election of 2005, and various council elections, including enlisted people at the grassroots level of the SWP, offering an almost schizophrenic support for Respect wherever they crop up in elections, which is completely against what's clearly stated on the SWP website. And this basically culminated 3.5 years ago in the general election, in the basically electing George Galloway to Parliament. A man, and Martin said that he has no regrets about that as well. This is a man who has hardly ever turns up to Parliament, was in the Big Brother house when bloody Parliament representing his constituents, lines his own pockets with talk sports, never in Parliament according to theyrunforyou.com. And all you can say, you've got no regrets about electing this man. Just shows how clueless the SWP is